Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. We've got a nice bright project today. This is a shopping tote. It starts off around about 15 inches or so square, but it's got so much room in it. So we've got the side panels or the gussets quite wide on the side there, deep as well. Lots and lots of room. One pocket on the inside, and this can be completely reversible as well. Should have probably used something just as fun on the inside. I didn't think about that until later. But yeah, it's a completely reversible bag, fully lined, no enclosed and no raw seams and no bindings, no zips, no Velcro, nothing. Just a couple of handles. Come along and we'll do this together. Now, I do have to warn you, it's not an easy project. Well, it is an easy project. It's just that it's quite fiddly. There are lots of elements to it. So you might want to have to stop the video quite a few times just to see what's happening. Like I said, it's not that difficult to make. It's all just straight sewing and folding. But you'll get there. The fabric I'm using today is some kind of an upholstery fabric or furnishing fabric. I think it's a great one to make outdoor cushions with. So it's got a little bit more weight than your normal quilting cotton. You could go with something like denim or a cotton duck or even a drill. So I think something with a bit more body might be more suitable for this bag. So this is the back and front of the bag. I have two pieces for that. I have one piece, it was just a piece of fabric that was left over, so I might as well use that for the pocket. The dimensions will be up on the screen in a moment. Then I have two pieces of fabric for the side of the bag, so the side is going to have a nice deep width to it. And then this one is for the base. We only need one of those, and then we need all of that again for the lining. So for the lining, because I'm using a plain colour, I've got three pieces of the same size, one for the bottom, two for the sides, and then I need a back and a front for the lining. And for my stabiliser, once again, I'm going to be using a product called Parlan. It's a lightweight fusible fleece. I have these cut a slightly different size. I have one for the bottom, and then I have two for the sides, and then I have two pieces for the front and back of the bag. Now I have trimmed 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimetre off the top of the stabiliser on the sides and on the top, but you don't need to do anything for the base of the bag. That will stay that 15 inches by 7 inches. So the first thing we need to do is stabilise all of our fabric pieces and prepare our pocket. Grab the pocket piece. I'm not stabilising this because there's enough body in it already. So all I'm going to do is fold it in half, sew around the sides along here, back stitch, and leave an opening for turning through later. So the pocket can be a little bit bigger if you've got extra fabric left over, but this was just a piece that I had left. I'll set that one aside, and I'm going to stabilise all my outer fabric pieces now. For the back and front of my bag, you want to make sure you check your directions. So if you've got a pattern with an obvious directional print, line those up the right way first. And line up your stabiliser so that it sits at the bottom of your bag. If you have trouble with stabilisers being too bulky in your seams, you can trim this back by 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch all the way around to accommodate your seam allowance. So you can see here I have about 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch gap all the way along the top, and that's because I want to fold this fabric over later. I'll do that for that one, and we'll do the same for this one. So those are ready to be ironed. Then we can grab our side panels and the base of our bag. So these are my sides and this is the base. So for the side panels, I'll do the same thing with my fusible, line that up from the bottom, and I'll have a gap at the top. And that one as well, and one more. This will be the base of the bag, and that will just line up right across the base there. I'll go and iron all of those in place now. Whilst I'm waiting for the heat press to heat up, I will sew the pocket. Back stitch here. And over this side as well. Okay, we can trim the corners. And we'll turn this the right way out, poke out those corners, and the top edge that's got the fold on it, we'll top stitch that. So I've folded the raw edges in underneath, given that a good press. I'm going to go along the top edge here and just go and top stitch that, and I'll be right back. All right, the top stitching along the top edge of the pocket is done. This little opening we'll worry about later. Now we'll take our lining pieces and we're going to set aside one piece, which is for the base of the bag. And then we'll grab the two other narrow pieces. And for today's project, my seam allowance is 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch. So on the wrong side of your lining fabric, we're going to measure 2 centimetres or 3/4 of an inch and mark a line going across the fabric. And for the top edge of your lining, we'll do the same. Okay, so now we have a line marked along the top edge of our fabric, so this is the orientation of the bag. We're going to fold the raw edge over to that line we've marked, and we can press this. You can actually just finger press this, it's only a piece of cotton. You can use some double-sided tape to hold it in place if you like, and I will actually do that on the outer fabric just because it's got fusible on it and it gets a bit bulky. So that's the top edge of the bag with the hem already folded over. And I'll do that for the other piece, and I will also do this for the side pieces. So all we've done is folded this fabric up to that line we've marked. 2 more to go. And I've already gone ahead and done the same for the outer fabric, except I've folded the edges over and clipped them in place because I'm using a heavier fabric. It's a little bit easier. So you'll do the same, you'll mark your 3/4 of an inch along the top edge and fold that over. And because there's a lot of bulk here, you can use double-sided tape to hold it in place if you like, but if you put clips down, you should be fine. So that's nicely positioned so that when I do the top stitching later, everything will line up nicely, hopefully. Okay, so now I have my side panels with the top edge folded over, my front and back panels with the top edge folded over, And the same for the lining, so the 2 lining pieces for the side and the 2 lining pieces for the back and front. And then we have the base of our bag that doesn't have any folded edges. Now let's take our lining piece and one of our back or front panels, and we're going to place the lining with the folded edge faced down, so that this will be the right side faced up. And we'll take our outer fabric with the right side faced down, so we'll have those two facing each other, and the folded edges are both facing outward. So we want our top edges lined up nice and evenly. So there's our fold, and along here. Now we're going to fold our fabric in half to find the centre. Place a mark in the middle there, and that's the centre of our fabric there. From the top edge, we're going to measure 4 centimetres or 1.5 inches. And keep in mind our centre is right along here. So we're going to mark a line from the centre out 2.5 inches or 6 centimetres. And we'll come down 4 centimetres or 1.5 inches and create a little box there. Find something with a curved edge, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a cotton reel. You just want a nice curved edge on all 4 sides. And we'll repeat for the other one. So grab the next piece of lining, place that with the printed side faced up, if yours is printed, and line up the outer fabric directly over the top and line up those edges once again. Once you've done that, grab your original piece. We can place that directly over the top so that we don't have to waste time folding the fabric in half. Find the centre. So now that we've marked these curves and the outside edge, we're going to stitch along these marked lines here. So we'll go straight down there, around the curve, straight along here, and around the curve again. So don't worry about the outside markings that we have there. We'll sew that and that together now. It doesn't matter where you start, straight edge is as good a place as any. Make sure all of the edges of your lining are lined up before you start sewing. It's one done, one more to go. So these will be cut out now and they will form the handle for our bag. What we need to do is cut on the inside about 1/4 inch or less from the stitching line, and we'll do that for both pieces. You still want to keep your lining and your outer fabric together. Fold that in half and make a neck and then you can cut out the handle. And just clip into the curve here. This will just relax the fabric so that your handle, or the curve of the handle, will sit a little bit more nicely. We can remove our clips. And then we can bring the lining or the outer fabric through the hole, just one of those layers. Even out the fabric, and we'll line up those top edges again, and we'll give this a good press, and then we'll top stitch. So I've just finger pressed this out so that it sits nice and neatly. I'll take it to the iron in a moment, and we'll do the same for the other one. Turn that one through as well. And I'll line everything up and press that. These have both been ironed now, and we can take them back to the machine, and we'll top stitch right around the edge there on both of those. And we can do the same for the next one. Next, we'll take the pocket piece and we'll attach that to the lining. So we'll find the centre. So we've got the centre right here, and we'll find the centre of our pocket, and we'll line that up along there. Move the outer fabric out of the way, and we'll position this pocket about 2.5 inches from the bottom of the handle. That should be fine there. And we can sew it around the outside edge of the pocket there. Let's go and do that. So make sure you've got no other fabric sitting behind the lining here. It's just the pocket straight onto the lining fabric. Back stitch here. So there's the pocket in place there. Now we can start putting the bag together. I have gone and put one of my nice metal labels on as well. So let's grab one side of our bag, and we have the lining and the outer fabric connected at the handle here. So we're going to place the lining faced up, and we've got the two wrong sides here. And then we can grab one of these side pieces. Well, this is actually the base. And we're going to place the right sides together. So if this were printed, you'd have the printed sides facing. And we're going to line that up with the lining only. Then we're going to take the other side of the bag, and we'll bring those right sides together so the lining will be facing, Bring this back, open that out, and this side of the lining is going to be pinned to that. So what we have now is the back and front of the bag, the gusset, or the base of the bag is pinned to the bottom pieces of the lining, and we can take this to the machine and we'll sew straight along both of these edges. So keep your outer fabric out of the way, and we're just going to sew the two lining pieces together. And I'm going to use my 1 centimetre or 3/8 inch seam allowance. So that's one side done, and we can do the other side as well now. Once again, make sure the outer fabric's not in your way. So now when you have a look at the bag, we've got our lining pieces with the base at the bottom here. We can go and iron this. It's up to you if you want to press it with the seams facing in one direction, or whether or not you want to press the seams open. That's completely up to you, and it is personal choice. So now that that's nicely pressed, we can attach the side pieces. I've got the folded edge at the top, which will meet up with the folded edges that we have up here. We'll take this folded edge and line that up with this folded edge. So keep them folded, just so that you can have them lined up evenly. And then we'll clip it together, open out that fold, and we're going to sew this all the way down to this stitching line that we have here. So we're going to stop on that stitching line. So we'll clip all of those edges together, but not the outer fabric, just the two lining pieces. So that's ready to be sewn. And then we can grab the other piece and bring that over to this side and have the folded edge faced up. And we can line those up along here. Okay, so now we have this side flap and this one, and we're ready to sew that onto our lining. And again, we'll make sure our outer fabric is out of the way. So once again, I've got my lining on its own with the outer fabric out of the way. I've opened out those two folds at the top of the bag, and I'll sew this from the very top all the way down. And I'm going to stop sewing right where this seam is. And backstitch. And then for the other side I'll do the same. I like to start at the top edge because that way I know that I've got my folds nice and even, and that's going to be more important for me later. And again, I'm going to sew up until I get to that stitching line. So this is looking like a real puzzle piece now, isn't it? So we've got our outer fabric a wing on one side and on the other that's been stitched in place for the lining. We now need to attach this side to this side of the lining. So what we're going to do is bring the fabric right side together. So we've got the folded edge of the lining here and here. We'll place those edges together just like we did for the other side of the bag. It looks very complicated, but and it's only because it looks like a tangled mess here, but it's actually an easy technique. There's just lots of work involved. So once again, this piece of lining comes all the way down past the stitching line, so you'll have the same seam allowance along here, and we're going to sew from the top down to that stitching line like we did on the other side. We'll turn this around, we'll grab the wing on this side, we can move this fabric out of the way. You can just clip it together in the centre if it's annoying. And then we'll place these lining pieces together. So let's go and sew both of those sides now. I've started at the top again. And we'll sew all the way down to that seam line. One more side and that lining is done for the side. And I'll finish at that stitching line once again. So I've pressed the sides again, and all we have to do now is close up this bottom section where the corner is. So they should meet up evenly, and if you haven't stitched past the stitching line, you should just be able to open out the corners and line them up. I did go a little bit over. You can undo it if you want to. This is why we do the lining first. We do the lining so that we can practice our stitching and get it right for the outside of the bag. Line that up across the centre, and we can sew from here across. So if you're having trouble seeing this because I've gone and used a solid coloured lining, it'll make much more sense when you do the outer fabric, because we'll be doing exactly the same thing that we're doing now with the fabric on the outside. Okay, let's sew across there and across there, and then that's the lining finished. So for the short sides, we're actually going to start sewing at the stitching line. And we'll finish sewing at the stitching line on the other side. And repeat for the other side. So that's the lining completely finished. This is the side gusset here, the base of the bag. No, that's not right. This is the side gusset here, comes down across the bottom there and across the other side. So my corners aren't perfect, but look, I can live with that. It's the inside of the bag. Hopefully by the time I get to the outside, I'll be an expert. So there we go. that's the inside of the bag now. So we're going to need to repeat all of that for the outer fabric. So we've got the two side pieces that have got the folded edges. We'll do our bottom piece first. Get the lining out of the way. And I'm going to place this over the top, and we'll clip all those edges together. And we'll sew straight down there. And while we're at it, we'll do the same for the other side. Flip that around, bring these two pieces together. And we'll stitch that side as well. And this time you want to make sure your lining's out of the way. Okay, that is the base of the bag done. Now we can line up the side. So bring that around to the front like this, and then we can grab our side piece and we'll open out the edge of the fabric. And we'll clip all of this in place until we get to the bottom, and you've got the seam along here, and if you fold this back you'll see we've got our 1 centimetre seam along there. So we're going to sew up to here, which is in line with that seam that we've got behind it. And on the other side we'll do exactly the same. Open out that little flap. And the edge, if you follow this fabric along the side here, you should see these two seams, this one here and this one here, meeting up at the bottom. So then you should get a good 1 centimetre or 3/8 inch seam. And again, we're only going to sew up to the stitching line, which is obviously just there. So I've got the top edge folded out on both sides. I did have double-sided tape along the edge here as well. I've had to pull that back a bit, otherwise I was going to get stuck on the machine and my presser foot. So I've sewn right up to the stitching line, and then I'll back stitch. And that's where that seam meets. So I've got a mark at the end here, which is where the stitching line is underneath. Back stitch. And that meets up along there. Okay, not much to go. So there's our wing there. Go and give that a good press. And then when you've done that, we'll attach the other side. So let's take this side and attach it to the top of your bag again. And the bottom of the fabric will line up with the edge of that finished seam. So that's that side. So once you've sewn this, you can line up the fabric along the bottom here and sew across there as well. If it's a bit tight, you might want to snip just into the corner here just to relax that fabric, and then you can sew straight across. So that's that side, and on this side we'll do the same. So once you're happy with the alignment on both of those, we can sew across there and then sew across the bottom. And we'll finish at that seam again and backstitch. And whilst we're at the bottom, we might as well sew that one as well. So I've turned the side edges so that they line up together, and then I've got the side seam and the bottom seam folded together. And I can start sewing at that seam. Down this end I'll do the same. I'm just going to bring that seam out, the side seam. This one here I'm just going to lay flat over the top. It's the best way to try and line it up. And end at the seam or the stitching line. And that's it. That's one side completely done, and we can go and do the other side now. And the last bit here, again, I'll bring that side seam and this side seam together. You can do it exactly the same with the lining as well. It's just easier to see with these two pieces of fabric. And once again we'll start on that stitching line. Bring those side edges together. So there we have a nice neat box at the bottom of our bag. We've got the side gussets. And you can trim the corners just a bit. On the lining as well. And now that all of that is done, we can turn the bag the right way out. Just remove those clips, they're actually really annoying. So we now need to find our way into the bag. Keep it sitting inside out for the time being. It's actually easier to sew this way. And what we can do is line up all of these folded edges and our side seams. So I'll fold that seam back over again and line up the seam and the folded edges. And then evenly line that up all the way around. Find the other side. And by having these edges folded right from the very beginning, it's actually much easier to line this up. If you had to go and fold these edges over at this stage, it would take you ages and you may not get it lined up perfectly. Not that this is necessarily going to be perfect, but you know, it does make the job easier. So everything else wants to fold in, and it's just a matter of lining up those edges. Easy. Once we've sewn this, we'll be top stitching in a moment. Once we've done this, we'll be finished. Let's top stitch this and then we're done. I've increased my stitch length for top stitching to 4mm. And we are finished. So that's it, we're done. You could easily make this a reversible bag if you used a really nice fabric for the lining. Nice and big, lots of space on the inside. Let's turn this the right way out. Oh, I did forget to do something. I wanted to put a magnetic enclosure in the top of the bag before we closed up the top section. Let's poke out these corners. And there we have it. It needs a good press. I'll do that shortly. So there's our nice little handbag with a different kind of handle this time. All fully lined and your seams all enclosed. Now I said I wanted to put a magnetic closure on here. Before you close up the top section, if you want to put one in, then put the magnets on your lining fabric, but you will want to stabilize that first. If you want to, you can go and put some little plastic snaps along here. That's just as easy to do. In fact, that might be the best thing to do now that I've forgotten the magnets. So what did you think? I really love this bag, mostly because of the colours. The colours are absolutely gorgeous. There's so much room in here. You could easily use this at the beach, throw a bunch of towels and swimsuits in here, and you could even pack a picnic in there as well, I think. But I love this bag. As I mentioned a couple of times, it is reversible, so you can put a really nice fabric on the inside and make it a really fun bag on both sides. I like the handles. They're not that difficult to do. It's just like when you do your recessed zips and you've got to turn things through. It's not that bad. Good practice anyway. And lots of room on the sides. I forgot to put the magnetic closure in, which I would have done just here. I don't know if I'm going to put any magnetic or plastic snaps on here. I could easily do that. But what I might do is put some on the side here, and then that way I can actually snap the sides of the bag together and it'll just sit like that. So I think that's what I might do, is go and put some little snaps just on the side, then that can stay together. And then if I have loads of towels or something like that in there, if I go out for a picnic, it can just be opened up. Great for groceries as well. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.